Welcome back to part 3 of What If Goku Was in One Piece. Last time we left off with Goku and Luffy, now fully grown up taking off on their adventures to obtain their goals. For Luffy, it is to become king of the pirates, and for Goku, it is to become the strongest fighter in the world. Unfortunately, just as soon as their journey had begun, a typhoon had wiped them away, forcing them to hide into the fish barrels that they had brought. Let's get this what if started. Two barrels float aimlessly in the water as two sailors on a civilian boat took notice. One shouted out, "Hey, looks like beer kegs floating down there." The other excitedly yells out, "Let me grab my hook." One of the men runs off and grabs a hook to hoist the barrels up. Eventually, the two barrels are brought up to the deck as one of the men sighs and says, "I'm not sharing my beer if you end up going through yours, haha." The other man laughs and says, "Yeah, whatever." Suddenly, a different ship comes out from behind a large rock formation. One of the men notices the ship and yells out, "Pirates!" Suddenly, cannons fired from the random ship as it began approaching. The guests began to scatter as some workers quickly took the barrels down below, just before the pirates boarded the ship. Below the deck where the barrels are stored, a pink-haired boy with glasses slowly walks into the civilian ship's kitchen as he quietly murmurs, "Hello? Anyone here?" Suddenly a barrel shakes. The boy yelps out in surprise as he shakes violently and asks once more, "Who's there?" The top of the barrel flies off as Goku pops his head up out of the barrel and holds his head before saying, "Ah, my head. I feel like I just got punched in my sleep." The boy falls over and yells out, "I'm sorry, please don't hurt me." Goku looks over and says, "Huh? Did you punch me? I don't see how. I was in this barrel." The boy is paralyzed in fear as Goku hops out of the barrel. Goku looks over and sees another barrel. Goku knocks on it with his fist lightly and says, "Hey, Luffy, you in there, bud?" The boy's eyes remain set on Goku. The barrel shook once as Luffy smashes the barrel open and yells out, "I slept great. Hey, there you are. What happened?" Goku laughed and said, "Haha, you smell like fish." Luffy laughed, then said, "Speaking of, I am hungry." Luffy then looked over at the boy and asked, "Hey, are you the cook here?" The boy, still paralyzed, squeezed some words out and said, "No, I am, well, I'm..." Suddenly, three pirates stumbled into the kitchen as one said, Well, Kobe, are we fraternizing with these possible troublemakers?" The boy, whose name appears to be Kobe, had his jaw drop once more. Goku then said, "You guys sure are some weirdly dressed cooks." The pirates glared at Goku as one walked over to Goku and said, "What did you say?" Luffy then asked, "You guys wouldn't happen to be pirates, would you?" One of the pirates spoke up once more and said, "Yeah, we are, so I suggest you guys fork over all of your treasure before someone gets hurt." Goku straightens his posture as he says, "Well, are you good pirates?" The pirates looked at one another confused before one began to say, "What kind of a question is that? We're pirates. Now, give us all your loot or I cut up your pretty faces." Goku smiles over at Luffy and said, "I call dibs on the two in the front." Luffy said, "I'll get the two in the back then." Goku then said confused, "Huh? There's only three." Luffy yelled, "Take this," as he ran up to the pair in the back and headbutted one as he punched the other, causing them to get sent out of the kitchen. Goku got into a fighting pose and said, "I'm ready whenever you are." The third and final pirate threw his hands up and said, Well, Lady Alvida." He then ran out of the kitchen in fear. Luffy then pat his stomach and said, "I'm still hungry." Goku said, "Well, since you hogged the battle, I think I am entitled to the first bite of grub that we find." Kobe stood up quickly and yelled out, "You guys are insane! Don't you know what you just did? You pissed off Lady Alvida." Goku and Luffy looked at one another and then back at Kobe. Goku said, "Okay, well, I don't care about any of that. Are you with those guys back there or what?" "I'm confused." Kobe stuttered before saying, "Not by choice. You see, I was going to go fishing in my small village when I got on a small boat, but that boat happened to be a pirate's boat, belonging to Lady Alvida, captain of the Alvida Pirates. So they took me as their prisoner, and I've been forced to work for her for the past 2 years now." Goku and Luffy then walked past Kobe and into a closet that contained a ton of apples. Luffy yelled out, "Woo, jackpot!" Goku yelled out, "Me first!" Kobe stared on in disbelief and said, "You guys truly don't care, do you?" In between bites, Goku asked, "How did you confuse a pirate boat and a regular boat anyway?" Luffy laughed with food in his mouth and said, "Yeah, you sound kinda stupid, haha." Kobe's eyes widened as his shoulders slumped, and he quietly said, "You're right. It was a foolish mistake. So, I want to ask, how are you guys here? Who are you? What are your names?" Luffy wiped his lips with the back of his hand as he stood up proudly and declared, "I'm Monkey D. Luffy. I'm going to be king of the pirates." Goku choked on his apple for a moment, quickly beating at his chest with a fist until the piece caught in his throat settled. Goku then said, "I'm Goku. I'm out to be the strongest fighter alive." Kobe then yelled out, "You guys are pirates." Goku scratched the back of his head and said, "Yeah." Kobe then said, "So, Luffy, you're after the One Piece then?" Luffy said, "Yep." Kobe's jaw dropped once more as he said, "The One Piece is said to hold treasures beyond anyone's imagination. Everyone is after that. You'll surely die." Luffy smiles and says, "Well, if I die trying to obtain that goal, then I die. Simple as that." Kobe looked at Luffy in horror before turning to Goku and saying, "And Goku, you're on his crew?" Goku said, "Yep. Isn't it cool?" Kobe said, "You guys are crazier than I thought. Please don't hurt me." Kobe then covered his head with his hands in fear as Luffy laughed and said, "Hurt you? Haha. You're such a loser. Man, I hate people like you. We only hurt people who deserve it." Kobe sniffled a bit and said, "Really?" Goku whispered to Luffy saying, "This guy's pretty wimpy, don't you think?" Luffy laughed and said, "Yeah. So, Kobe, right?" Kobe nodded solemnly. Luffy then continued and said, "What do you want to do with your life?" Kobe quietly mumbled, I would, well." Goku laughed and said, "Aw, come on, spit it out. It can't be bad, right?" Kobe balled up his fist and yelled out, "I want to be a Marine. It's been my dream ever since I was a child." Goku and Luffy stared at Kobe with a blank expression before Kobe said, "But I can't join with a pirate background like this." Luffy laughed and said, "That's stupid. They won't care about that if you explain it the way you told us." Kobe said, "You think so?" Goku patted his now full belly and said, "It's always worth a shot. First you have to get away, I suppose. How hard could that be?" Kobe said, "Lady Alvida is a terrible lady, if you could even call her that." Suddenly, the roof to the kitchen caved in, and a large lady stood up amongst the debris and asked, "What was that, Kobe?" Kobe froze and said, "Nothing." "Nothing at all, Lady Alvida." Lady Alvida then asked, "Who is the most fair on all the seas, Kobe?" Kobe, flustered, said quickly, "You of course, Lady Alvida." Goku then said, "Whoa, she's huge." Luffy laughed and said, "I was just about to say the same thing. Like, who is this fat lady?" Luffy and Goku laughed as Alvida's face contorted in anger. Kobe yelled out, "What are you guys doing?" Alvida then gripped her club tightly as she said, "Kobe, capture them. Are you going to let them insult me? The most beautiful on all the seas." Kobe gritted his teeth before remembering Luffy's resolve of becoming king of the pirates, even if it kills him. Kobe then yells out, "No, you're fat and ugly. I hate being a part of your crew," Goku yelled out. "Yeah." Luffy laughed and clapped as Alvida's face became red with rage as she raised up her giant club and threw it towards Luffy, Goku, and Kobe. Kobe screamed as Goku quickly picked him up and jumped up to the top deck of the ship. Luffy caught the club midair. Alvida yelled out, "Unhand my club! Who sent you? You couldn't possibly be Zoro, could you?" Back on the top deck, Goku sat Kobe down as Kobe yelled out, "Look out!" A pirate swung his sword, narrowly missing Goku. Goku did a quick jab to the pirate's stomach, causing him to quickly fall over. 5 members of Alvida's crew quickly charged Goku. Goku dodged their punches and sword swings effortlessly. Kobe looked onward, saying quietly, "Unbelievable." Goku then punched and kicked the men overboard. Alvida suddenly got thrown up to the top deck. She slowly picked herself back up before yelling out, "What are you? Who are you?" Luffy jumped up and landed in front of Alvida saying, "I'm Monkey D. Luffy, soon to be king of the pirates." The pirates began laughing loudly as Alvida smugly smiled before saying, "What a fool's dream. You got lucky though. I'm still quite formidable without my club anyhow." Luffy smiled before saying, "Luck has nothing to do with it. I have help from my crew, as well as my special gum-gum powers." Alvida yelled out, "Shut your yap. You'll pay for your insults with your life." Alvida began charging towards Luffy, as Luffy threw his arms back and yelled out, "Gum-gum! Bazooka!" Luffy's arms flung forward, hitting Alvida into the sky, far away from the ship. Kobe yelled out, "No way!" The pirates all stared at the sky in disbelief as Luffy yelled out, "Hey, you!" The men, startled, looked over at Luffy and said, "Yes, sir?" Luffy smiled and said, "Get Kobe here a boat. He's going to become a marine." The men bowed and presented a boat to Kobe and them. Goku noticed Luffy bringing Alvida's club. Goku said, "Why are you bringing that?" Luffy blinked and said, "It's a trophy." Goku said, "Cool." Kobe said, "Leave it. That'll sink our boat." Luffy pouted before adamantly leaving it on the boat. Kobe, Goku, and Luffy got on the boat and began sailing away. Luffy sits on the front of the boat. Kobe then asks, "That was insane. I didn't know you could stretch like that. How is that even possible?" Luffy laughed and said, "See, I ate the devil fruit known as the gum-gum fruit. It turned my body into rubber. I'm a rubber man." Kobe's yelled out, "You traded a pirate's most valuable skill though, the ability to swim." Luffy shrugged and said, "I made it this far somehow." Goku laughed and said, "'Cause I saved your ass from drowning plenty of times, haha." Luffy pouts and said, "I didn't ask for help." Kobe then said, "So, where are we going anyway?" Luffy scratches his head and says, "Well, I don't know." Kobe yells out, "How do you not know?" "Goku, are you a navigator?" Goku tilts his head and said, "What's that? The compass using people?" Kobe sighs and said, "You guys really set out to see this unprepared. It really is a miracle you both made it this far." Luffy said, "Oh, that fat lady had mentioned a Zoro. Is that someone powerful? If so, let's go over there and ask him to join my crew." Goku chimed in, "If he's strong, I want to fight him." Luffy clapped his hands while laughing. Kobe yelled out, "You should stay away from Zoro. Rumor has it, he's a dangerous bounty hunter. I heard he was locked away in a prison in Shell's Town anyway." Luffy then said, "Then that's where we're headed." Kobe yelled out, "Are you serious?" Goku cheered and said, "Yeah, he better be strong." Kobe sighs and said, "Fine, but that's as far as I'm taking you guys. And that is where I will be leaving it for right now." The story didn't deviate too much from the original. I wanted to showcase Luffy's powers similar to how it was done in the original, and give room for some dialogue between the group to show their bond. Please tune in for Part 4, where we will be seeing how Goku does in Shell's Town with Zoro and Captain Morgan. Until next time, don't forget to subscribe. Later.